us from the board, Amanda Meehan, Education Officer, and her portfolio includes Parent Involvement Committee, so thank you, Amanda, for supporting the evening. I'm just going to, I know it's a very small group, but if we could remember our phones, there is some video in tonight's presentation, and if we could just click our phones off, that would be helpful. I'm going to turn it over to our Vice Principal, Julie Martel.
Good evening, everyone. I just have a few notes, and I'm sorry, I'm very sick. My name is Julie Price Martel, and I'm one of the very proud VPs here at West Ferris. I would first like to take this opportunity to welcome you here and to say thank you for taking time out of your schedule to participate in this very important presentation. I would like to take the opportunity to recognize the outstanding work of our School Advisory Council here at West Ferris Intermediate Secondary School. Catherine, Sherry ×2, Dale, Tracy, Ellen, and Lori. Without this group of committed parents, we would not have this presentation here tonight, so thank you. They have also worked to collect parental resources for all of you to take home. They're all outside. I'm holding one in my hand. If you would like to take it, to provide some more information on how we can help support our kids. Our School Advisory Council will also provide the video presentation and additional resources to be available online on our school website, as well as our West Ferris Updates page on Facebook. Thank you so much for all your thoughtful planning and your precision with this event. I would also like to recognize our CDC for West Ferris Intermediate Secondary School, Sue Bolio, who works with all of our students 7 to 12. She is an amazing lady, she is so patient and kind, and without her exceptional detail to planning and smooth communication, this evening would not have happened. Lastly, I would like to thank our West Ferris hospitality students and their teacher, Rayanne Cameron, for the delicious snacks and coffee waiting for you outside of these doors. And because there's so few of you, you can have double. It's perfect, works out. Today, over 100 grade 10 West Ferris students sat where you are sitting here today, and they listened to this presentation. They also had the opportunity to participate in 4 workshops hosted by North Bay community groups: the Transition House, Amelia Rising, the Crisis Center, and the North Bay Police Service for additional information and support on how our students can help eradicate relational violence. We also have Rhonda Williams here today, tonight as well, so she can help you if you'd like. She's from Community Counseling Center. Whether it's a relationship with a girlfriend, boyfriend, or spouse, we all deserve to have a healthy relationship. Unfortunately, as we all know too well, this isn't always the case. And sometimes the outcomes of abusive relationships can be fatal. I am very honored to introduce our guest presenter tonight. Tonight we are very fortunate to have Mrs. Dawn Novak and her husband Ed here. Their presentation, If You See It, Speak It, strives to provide students and parents with information about how to help someone who might be experiencing abuse and encourages witnesses of violence to speak up. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Dawn Novak.
I'm just going to interrupt for one brief moment. We do have one late guest. I'd like to acknowledge that our director, Jackie Young, is here this evening. And the reason I want to take a moment and do that is to demonstrate our board's commitment to working with us on these kinds of issues that are in our school community. So thank you, Jackie, for being here.
Good evening. It is truly an honor to be here. I'm very impressed with the parent council here. Just what you've put together is incredible. To speak sort of back to back after speaking with your children today is really an interesting experience for me. The presentation with the students was amazing to me. They were so engaged. I go to the back when the video is on so that I can watch them and see if they do remain engaged, and it was marvelous. So it gives me a really warm and good feeling. I'm speaking to you tonight not as an expert. I'm not trained to be doing this type of work, but I'm a parent. I'm coming to you as a parent, face what one would call your worst nightmare. At the age of 20, my husband and I lost our daughter to a domestic violence relationship, a very violent relationship, that took her life in her 3rd year of university. And from that time forward, I had been a teacher. I was a teacher. That was my career. And I used to present, do things out for my board. I became very moved by the idea that my daughter had never received a high school assembly or a high school presentation that spoke to relationship violence. As an educator, I knew that it was lacking. I participated in child abuse workshops, drinking workshops, saying no to drug workshops, but never was it addressed that young people needed to hear this message. We come from a small community, my husband and I. We live just outside of Bracebridge. That's where my daughter grew up. She grew up attending school by the little yellow school bus that picked her up in the morning and came back home. I knew her friends. I knew the life that she lived. She left to attend university to the big city with a great smile on her face and very excited, and I believe firmly unequipped. So I have a passion to speak to students, to young people, and to try and get across to them the things that I think they will need to move on in their lives, to move away from home as they finish up high school, and to start planting those seeds for healthy relationships. And that's where I'm going to begin, and that's where I'm coming from. So I'm going to work through a presentation with you, and then hopefully we'll have time for just a discussion, whether it be in here as a group or whether we go outside. So, to begin, I have a couple of quotes that come from Canadian researchers. Callahan is one of them. This comment of his comes from some of his papers. This one is from 2003, but I find it very relevant and it's a good way to open. It reminds us that adolescents may be at even greater risk than adults are, which is something to point out. For physical harm and psychological harm, given their lack of experience, their desire for independence, and the reliance on support from inexperienced peers. So these are sort of the things that work against them, the fact that all these good things are happening, that they're striving for their independence, but it also can be a problem for them. After Natalie died, one of the things to speak to groups that we really felt was important was to provide a tool or a vehicle that could impart the information. We worked on for a 2-year period with a group of her friends and adults that were involved in the case on a video. And I'm going to share that with you now. It's called If Only, Nat's Story. And its purpose is educational. Its target audience is high school students, university students. Its purpose is to teach and to learn, but it's also to take that concept of a statistic and to turn it into a human being. So this is one of many young women who lost their lives, but it's also our daughter. So I'm going to ask that we take a look at that. I think the lights are probably fine. This is a 20-minute video, and we will just viewer responses, and we threaded them together to create the story. I think one of the most upsetting aspects of doing the video for me was to know that these young people were all being asked, what did you know and what did you do? It was pretty devastating. They were all just in their early 20s, some of them in their late teens. But you can see the passion that they had in wanting to speak to others and to move forward. So I'm very proud of the movie, and it does seem to do the job. Your children today seemed incredibly engaged. They just just stopped. They stopped everything that they were doing, and they watched and they listened. So if we move on a little bit, a big long list that's here deals with consequences. The consequences of dating violence are becoming more understood and more known all the time through different researchers and what they're discovering. First of all, at the top, it's really important to understand that dating violence and abusive relationships can have immediate effects. They always have immediate effects. But what's been a bit of a surprise is the amount of time that it has taken, and we see this in media all the time. We wonder about people that are coming forward and disclosing things that happened to them 10, 15 years ago. We have the Ghomeshi situation, where those young women were coming forward years after what has happened. Long term, and now there's a lot of feeling that some of these effects are actually lifelong, than something that has occurred in an adolescent state. We're looking at the obvious. There's self-esteem and there's confidence issues that happen to a victim of dating violence. Their sense of safety has been incredibly altered. Sense of safety is something that is becoming very relevant with digital dating violence. The fact that it can be reached, that a victim can be reached anywhere. There is no place to avoid it. There is no way to hide from it. That text can come, that social media message can come. They know that their reputation can be destroyed. So when you have digital equipment being used, the sense of safety becomes a really relevant live issue for a victim. Truancy is something that you're going to see. Just can't face attending school, can't face being there. Academic success is another area where you'll see sudden changes. All of these, of course, possible. Not every individual is going to experience them. Affect development and function is something that you may see. The moodiness, the changes. Young women definitely are showing an increased risk for substance abuse that have been involved in dating violence. There is an increased risk for future violence, so when they do test and they do look at people that have difficulties later in life or in university, very often have been people that were involved in a dating relationship that had violence or abuse as a part of it in their adolescence. Unhealthy weight gain or unhealthy weight control behaviors, depression, definitely, so we're starting to see these links with mental health concerns. Sexual risk behaviors can become very prominent. Of course, pregnancy and suicidal behaviors. When statistics are taken and done and they're looking at the numbers of people that are involved, they never cover issues such as people that have committed suicide, that they know there's been some connection with dating violence. So very serious consequences move along with this. Again, we're looking at studies. This is done in 2004, and it's really beginning to change how we're looking at things. We're talking about the fact that physical force is what we used to see as dating violence. That's what we thought. If somebody came home with a black eye or a broken arm, then we knew there was abusive behavior. What we weren't live to, or we weren't really aware or cognizant of, is that it now more broadly is recognized as a continuum, something that has a beginning that can move all along towards more abusive behaviors. And it can really range in its activities from incidents of emotional and verbal abuse all the way to homicide. So it's quite a spectrum. The next few slides that I'm going to share with you are the slides that we use today to work with your children. And I like them because they speak to them right where they're at. They take all aspects of relationship. I begin to point out to them that relationships basically fall into three categories. They're healthy, they're unhealthy, or they're abusive. And they're all on that line. So if we take that one step further and we start to look at qualities of a relationship and we use healthy relationships as our green for go, and our caution in the center, and our red for stop, then it's really easy for students to see when I start to compare how things can move in and out. You are able to have an unhealthy relationship that isn't abusive. So sometimes that's where a person will stay, just in very unhealthy behaviors that never takes that final step into abuse. You can have a healthy relationship in several of the aspects, but then start to have unhealthy qualities creeping in. So it's very helpful for the kids to see that it's not a stagnant thing. A relationship is not black and white. It's something that moves, grows, changes with circumstance, with time, and that's what's really important for them to understand. So for the sake of tonight, like rather going through it, what I do is go through each of these and I give the kids descriptions, or I give them examples of what that could look like. So for example, if we take the first one, in a healthy relationship, what does communication look like? Communication is calm, it's open, it's unthreatened. People and couples can talk to each other about what they're thinking, what they want, what they're feeling, what their mood is. There's no yelling. If there's a conflict, it's something that you discuss with each other. But communication in an unhealthy relationship starts to move in a different direction. Voices can be raised, people can start to become frightened about talking to their partner about something because their partner gets bent out of shape and their partner doesn't, makes a big to-do out of it, and so suddenly one of the persons in the relationship decides that it's not really, worth it to bring this up or to talk about it. Communication starts to become stifled. When you look at communication in an abusive relationship, you're looking at full-blown shouting, screaming at each other, name-calling, demeaning names, insults, those types of behaviors where the communication has now become very toxic. It's not good at all. A person becomes very stifled. They're frightened to talk about things. They don't want to set off their partner. They don't want to upset the equilibrium in the relationship. And what you see then is this ability to move back and forth. So someone may be very abusive in a particular conversation or a particular circumstance, and normally is not that way. But when kids are aware of how we can go in and out of lines, they start to become more cognizant of what a healthy relationship is and the way that it should be. We move down this entire list, finishing up with sexual decisions. A sexual decision in a healthy relationship is something that's shared. It's what they both want. It's where they both are at. They both feel comfortable with the decision that they've made. In an unhealthy relationship, you have pressure being applied to one of the people in the relationship. The other person is sort of being pushed along into something that they're maybe not comfortable in doing. But this would be an example of it turning more unhealthy. And then full-blown in an abusive relationship, there is no decision any longer. You have a person being forced or coerced, manipulated, all of those things. Kids need to hear and they need to learn that any sexual activity that's not consensual is really abuse. So you make that very clear to them that it's a joint decision between a couple, between people that are relating to each other very well. I do the same for each of those. I'm not going to do it now. I think you have the idea. There's also a very interesting handout outside that shows the spectrum vertically, and it talks about keeping cool, medium, and then that danger zone, and it just separates the qualities. I like to do it this way because we can compare them, and the kids can actually see what's the difference in how trust works in a healthy relationship as opposed to an unhealthy relationship. And they really begin to get it. I remind them that it's important to to understand that each and every one of us have a comfort zone. We have a line, I call it the line. And that line tells you what's right and what you're feeling okay about. Most people, when people have that line crossed, immediately sense discomfort. They might be upset that other people have heard it or other people have seen it. But what you're really looking at is listening to that gut feeling that this is right and this isn't. So I warn kids about, you have a line, and that line has balance. When somebody starts stepping over it, when somebody starts insulting you, demeaning you, taking things that are just not where they should be in front of others, or even to yourself, then your comfort zone will speak to you. Your comfort zone will tell you that this is not right. So I remind them, we all have a line. Draw the line. This video explains that concept so beautifully to them. It's about a 60-second video, and man, they get it. I'll share it with you now.
Hey, babe. Where are you? What are you doing? Okay, who are you with? Wait, stop. I hear guys in the background. What's going on? Okay, whatever. Just, when are you gonna be home? Well, do you want to come over? Why not? No, listen, you remember what I said about your parents. They're just trying to control your life. No, I'm just looking out for you. I love you. Hey, if you loved me, you'd be hanging out with me.
The kids really do understand that, and it's really neat to see it visually done, how the person can step in and out of his character. So, 1 minute is kind of like, well, you want to come on over? And then it's the next minute, why not? And the kids can really pick up on that. This is an incredibly good resource website for people to take a look at. I've listed it on the PowerPoint handout that I have for you at the end, loveisrespect.org. It's filled with videos, it has teen blogs, it has discussions, it has parent tips. It's really worth investigating and taking a look at. Oh. So after kids understand where abuse falls, then we would take a look at, okay, once we are talking about abusive relationships, abuse is going to fall into essentially 3 categories. There are many others. You can talk about, financial abuse. You can talk about religious, spiritual. There's all different forms of abuse, but essentially they're going to fall into these 3 categories: physical abuse, sexual abuse, and psychological. This is very easy to see. Physical abuse is very visible, and it's often above the radar. Sexual abuse is not, although we do feel that it is, because sexual abuse falls into 3 categories, and that's harassment, coercion, and actual assault. Assault is a little bit easier to determine. People know when they've been assaulted, mostly, not always. But we have sexual harassment and coercion. Harassment is very hard to see the effects. It's very hard to know what's going on. As a parent, it's very difficult to know whether or not your child's coming home after being harassed all day in and day out. They're not going to talk about it. They're not going to tell you. So you're going to need to look for other signs. Harassment is insidious. It can be digitally done. It can be people, it's usually wrapped up with a person's sexuality. There's name calling, there's ridicule, there's embarrassing you in front of others. All of those things would fall under the category of harassment. When that's done on a daily basis, when that's frequent, when it's severe, when it's done in front of people, it's devastating for a teen. You may be totally unaware that this is happening to them. We'll talk about signs later. In coercion, you're looking at the trickery and the manipulation of a partner to get what they want to get. So if their goal is sexual activity, sexual favors, whatever, and they're using things like getting people drunk, getting people to use drugs, getting people to do what they want through threats, I'm going to post something, I'm going to say that you did this, somehow through trickery and manipulation, they're getting what they're wanting. But it is coercion. This is abusive behavior. There's no other way to describe it. When we move to psychological behavior, again, you're looking at something that often flies under the radar. It's very difficult to pick up that a moody teen is becoming depressed, that their self-esteem is at a very low level, that it's actually becoming dangerous, that they're losing interest in things. Psychological damage is caused through the same thing. It's caused through ridicule, threats, demeaning people, innuendo, all of those types of things that are done on a daily basis to belittle and demean a person can cause significant psychological problems, and it's all considered abuse. It's abusive behavior. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to take a look a little bit now and talk somewhat. I have concerns in the video. The video was made regarding specifically that case. Unfortunately, the text uses the words he over and over again. We do know that the bulk of victims are definitely women. They're definitely young women, and your perpetrators, I believe it's 97% in dating violence, are going to be male. So when you're talking about violence, this is a police chart. This is 2011. They're collecting stats from Canada. And of course, the age group that you're interested in is the first one. Highest at risk for abuse and sexual assaults and violence is 15 to 25. This is the age where the prevalence is the highest. That's why that second group is as high as it is, because it includes up to 25. But this is where most of your at-risk individuals are. This is where they most likely will have this happen. One thing that I use it for is for kids to understand anyone can be an abuser and anyone can be a victim. So there are girls that are abusing young men. There are girls that are harassing, stalking, showing up where they shouldn't, texting, being controlling, doing all of those behaviors that we saw in the video that we have concerns about. The difference that happens, and the reason you see this huge difference here, is because this one is talking about dating violence. So when we bring violence into the picture and when we bring sexual assault into the picture, there's a very strong difference. It's the girls that are being hurt. It's the girls that are in the hospital. It's the girls that the homicide rates are as high as they are. It is the girls that are experiencing the sexual abuse at a much greater rate than young men. So basically, police talk about it as 10 to 1, and you can certainly see that is what you're looking at there. You have basically, according to these statistics, 1 in 100, but we're also going to learn in a few moments that that number needs to be looked at very carefully, because that's what's being reported. So you've got 10 times the amount of victims being female, 2 men or 2 young men, and the fact that it's an incredibly underreported crime. So that's one of the reasons that I like to use that. And so here we go. If we look at 1 in 100, which is what that statistic was indicating, the other statistic that matches that is that we know that less than 10% are being reported. So less than 10% of all sexual assaults in Canada are being reported to police, and it is now considered one of the most underreported violent crimes in Canada. The stats now have even moved from 2011 when I did the video. We've now come to 1 in 3. It was basically a 1 in 4. 1 in 3 are considered accurate for Ontario, for most of Canada, as well as the US. 1 in 3 will experience some form of sexual assault in their lifetime. So where are the signs of abuse that you're perhaps going to be able to pick out, or you're going to be seeing as parents and in your home? I've grouped them into 4 areas. You're going to see things that will affect school, things that will affect attitude and mood, things that will affect physical appearance, and an activity level. And then at the bottom, I'd like you to be aware of that. Wherever or whoever they fall, both victim and perpetrator definitely need help. There needs to be intervention. That's one clear thing that has come out, is that left alone, without intervention, abuse worsens. So unless somebody leaves the relationship or someone steps in to intervene, they will invariably become worse. Situations do not get better on their own. So in school, what kinds of things are we going to see? We've alluded to them before. You're going to see things like truancy. You're going to see drops in perhaps performance, marks, assignments being handed in, a change that teachers will actually be able to pick up, and probably parents at home eventually. But school will be affected. They may not want to go any longer. If the abusive situation or the difficult situation exists at their school, then that's going to heighten that. So you're going to see a change in how they perceive and how they interact at school. So perhaps not wanting to go, perhaps skipping. You're starting to get a problem with kids skipping classes. They're just sort of disappearing. Those are signs that you need to investigate, particularly if you know that there's a relationship involved. Things like attitude and mood get a little difficult because we have moody teenagers. But this is above and beyond that. So things in attitude and mood you're going to see is things like anxiety, nervousness, things that perhaps will ring true to you as the beginnings of depression. But a child being down that normally wasn't, an actual difference in how they sort of interact, their tolerance level in the house, their arguing, all of those things seem to start to change. So in attitude and mood, those are the real keys that you're looking for. Specifically though, quiet, not wanting to talk, communications a bit disturbed, perhaps not wanting eye contact with you like they used to, but you are really beginning to sense something that's different. Also obsessive behaviors, constantly worrying about whether their partner's called, or you know, was there any messages, or oh, I really need to call, or I really need to find out you know, what they're doing or where they're going to be. Suddenly just becoming very obsessed and worried about circumstances and situations. Changes with friends, not wanting to be with a group that they normally like to be with, but things that actually are becoming different would be clues for you to start, you know, maybe investigating, asking what's going on, what's happening. Physical appearance is a little easier. It would be changes in clothing, changes in styles, changes in makeup, changes in how they look, wearing peculiar clothes for, let's say it's summertime, and all of a sudden, you know, your teens wanting to have long sleeves. You heard in the video. My daughter would come home on weekends, and I guess my feeling is that she was trying to head me off by saying things like, gee, I bruise so easily. I don't understand what's going on. Because I might have noticed that there was a big bruise on her leg, and I would. And that would be the answer. So the physical appearance, you've got, again, changing. Things that are different. All of a sudden they want to wear something different. They don't want to wear what they did before. They don't want to look the way they did before. It could be that they're, you know, sort of becoming isolated, and you know, you've got kids who want to wear their hoods all day. They don't want to look at people. They don't want to interact in the same way. So physical appearance can also be a good way to pick up that something is wrong. Activities would be the whole deal. They would be how they're sleeping, changes in eating, changes in the ability to relax, to enjoy TV, to go out with friends, hobbies, interests that they had. All of a sudden things are different. Don't want to be on the team anymore. Don't want to do volleyball. Don't want to do track. Don't want to go to dance class. Don't want to go to music lessons. Don't want to see that friend of mine anymore. I don't like them anymore. Those kinds of changes in activity. And then right down to having difficulty sleeping, eating differently, weight changes. All of those things would have to do with activities. When we have these kinds of signs happening, it's time to speak to a team. It's time to try and understand what's going on at whatever way you can, that open communication. So those are areas that you may see some changes. We'll talk a bit now about what can you do. What can we do as parents? There's a lot of information outside. I created a list of parent tips that are online resources and have shared those with the Parent Council. And this is another list of them that we can talk about for a few minutes. So, first of all, we all need to remember if a teen were to come home and describe to you an assault, or it was obvious that there's been an assault, all of this is secondary. Our first call is to authorities. So our first instant would be, we have to react. This is a crime, there's been a crime committed, I need to follow through. But we're talking about other aspects as opposed to something as dramatic as your teen coming home and it's very obvious they've been assaulted or hurt. So tell your teen that you're concerned for their safety and their self-esteem. You want to help, you don't want to judge. So it's that if they feel that you're judgmental, you close the door to their ability to speak with you. So being open and making it very clear that your concern is their safety. That's really the key. Safety, safety, safety. I'm worried about you. I'm worried about your safety. Talking to your teens, you need to be supportive. You need to listen. This is the time that we need to be quiet and we need to let them talk. Tell me about what's going on. Tell me what's happening. Acknowledge their feelings. Be respectful of the circumstance and the decisions that they're in. You may find that your son, your daughter are in an unhealthy relationship. You have great concerns about it. You need to listen to their concerns or what's going on. You may say things, but ultimately it's really important that we respect their decisions. So what do you think? Are you going to see them again? If we forbid, I don't think you're going to get the result that you wish. It's been proven in circumstances that happen in shelters, abusive relationships, people need to be ready to make their own decision. We cannot make decisions for them. If we forbid, if we step in that dramatically, unless there's been something like an assault, and then we're going to be as dramatic as we want, it is best to be supportive and to be caring and concerned and help them make the correct decisions.